Yeah, I would like to warmly welcome everyone to our panel. I'm looking forward to a question that might interest many here in this room. What's the next big thing? And however, it is increasingly difficult to keep an overview as the entire sector has an extreme growth dynamic. And that's why I'm really happy that we have experts from most of the different areas sitting here, from Metaverse to NFT, decentralized autonomous organizations, to staking, to VC investing, and so on and so on. And I think that these different focuses can bring us some insights, great insights in the next 30 minutes. And before we get to my questions, I would like to briefly introduce our experts here on the panel. And I would like to start with Alexander von Frankenberg. With a background in IT and finance, he has been running high-tech Gründerfonds as a managing director since 2005, and I've already invested into 660 tech startups. Next to a very diverse tech portfolio, HTGF is also looking into crypto startups. And yeah, Alex is famous for his bullishness on Bitcoin. He says that Bitcoin is becoming the de facto standard for store of value, and its potential is at least 100x from now. Yeah, and then I would like to welcome Adrian Fritz, who is a research associate at 21 Shares Amun, which are known for their numerous crypto-backed ETPs. And there he is creating data-driven analysis of the crypto asset industry and the macroeconomic trends. Previously, Adrian worked as a financial analyst at Cellnex in Zurich and at Signature Management Consultants in Barcelona. He completed his master's degree in international business at the Hart University International Business School in San Francisco. Then, next I would like to welcome Niklas Weber, who is on a mission to foster decentralization, and therefore he is part of many different companies and associations. In 2021, he founded the Meta Game Hub DAO, which makes NFTs more accessible through the implementation of an AI valuation algorithm that estimates the fair price of an NFT. That's very nice. I want to hear more later on. And next to that, he's the founder and CEO of a company called Decentralized Autonomous Company, short DAC. Additionally, he's the co-founder of the tokenization working group at the European Blockchain Association. Niklas graduated from the Frankfurt University of Applied Science and has a bachelor in international finance. Then I'm looking forward to Stefan Schmidt, who is working for the staking infrastructure provider Blockdaemon since 2 years already and has already taken on various positions, roles in this company, from business developer, relationship manager, and now sales director. In addition to that, he's working as a manager at the International Token Standardization Association. And yeah, for more than 2 years, he was project manager here at the Frankfurt School Blockchain Center. Normally, last but not least, we would have Theo. I could see, there's Theo. Hi, Theo. Great to see you. And Theo is an expert in digital business models. He's the founder of Delta School, an online business school for digital marketing. Among other things, he was previously a professor of e-commerce, online marketing at the International School of Management and the Macromedia University of Applied Science. Theo is an international keynote speaker, podcaster, and business influencer. And in the meantime, he became a big NFT advocate. And looking at his LinkedIn account, Theo, I found an NFT, a mutant ape NFT on your LinkedIn account in preparation for this panel. And with this in mind, Theo, I would like to jump directly into our panel discussion and ask you, Theo, how could you justify that hundreds of thousands, even millions, are getting invested into these NFTs like Bored Ape or Mutant Ape, Theo?
Okay, so for those who don't know, this famous Bored Ape Yacht Club collection was released pretty much 1 year ago at a price of $200. At the moment, the cheapest one that you can buy is around $400,000. And the whole collection has a trading volume of about 2 billion just in the last year. And the company behind that, the studio, is now being valued at 4 billion from startup investors like Andreessen Horowitz. And so I think the idea behind these NFTs is that, yes, they look very silly. yes, it seems like a very stupid idea to spend that much money on monkeys, on cartoon monkeys. I also don't know whether you should spend 400,000 on them right now. But as you can see, it's a new growing asset class, and people are using it for different things. I think very few people actually enjoy the art behind it because it's not that pretty. And if you wanted to have only the picture, then you could just download it and right-click save it, as people like to make fun of. But I think the key behind these NFTs is the so-called utility. And the utility could be that you're a member of some kind of, say, business club, country club, or golf club. And you might think that this membership is worth a lot of money. It's also a status symbol and a signaling device, because maybe if you're a crypto entrepreneur, by showing your expensive profile picture, you can kind of show off that maybe you were early and discovered the apes when they were only $200, and now you can show that you're very smart or something like that. But we can also see that celebrities are now using these profile pictures instead of, say, a Rolex or a Lamborghini as a status symbol. And this also directly ties us into the metaverse, because as we spend more and more time in the metaverse, it's also very important for some people to develop a digital identity and to also show off some digital status symbols. And we know from young kids that they're spending $5 on Roblox items or on Fortnite skins. And so buying monkeys for 100,000 is kind of the grown-up version of that.
Okay, so you mean that the high prices refer to the status I could gain while having a Bored Ape yacht NFT for $1 million, for example. But isn't there more? Isn't there more utility you can have? I mean, Theo, if you like to answer, or someone else here on the panel?
Maybe I take that, yeah. I think now it's really about the utility, and as you mentioned earlier, it now became this exclusive club, and obviously you want to be part of that club. And now a lot of celebrities like Steve Curry, Jimmy Fallon, I don't know, many others, they bought those Bored Apes. And for a lot of people, they want to be part of this elite, if you want to call it like that. But again, I think the high prices is really about this prestige and this image component. A lot of people in the real world, they buy Richard Milles, for instance. Sorry if anyone has one. I'm not a fan, but they pay insane amounts of money just to basically show off and show that you're in a certain category. And I think that's the same with NFTs as well. The problem is here, or the advantage, online way more people see your NFT compared to you walking through the city with a nice watch.
And maybe you can add business models. I mean, you can maybe rent it out, like you rent a very expensive a bag or a car, and you can rent it out, and then someone pays rent for utilizing the NFT for a little while, just for the weekend. So I think next to the hype and maybe a little bubbly territory, I think there could be real-world business models attached to it.
And maybe from a commercial perspective, there are many different kinds of NFTs. We have gaming, we have art, we have music, we have communities, we have metaverse, and so on and so on and so on. So I would like to know from you, which of these special sectors has the most, in the short term, maybe commercial potential? Not from a speculative side, maybe from a really...
Maybe I can take that. I think what's going to be really interesting is the whole event scene. So I think we will see NFTs as a ticket pretty soon, and with more and more utility, because I think the Bored Apes are, you know, somewhere in the intersection. They bring some utility now, but I think the time of just having like online stickers is over. So you need some extra utility, and I think the perfect way to do it is really tickets, because you can give an NFT away for free with the ticket price, you know, included, and then just build whatever you want on it. And we actually see this on a lot of crypto conferences right now already, that people launch their own NFTs at their booth just for people to show up. And I think this is the number one. And then, as you mentioned, gaming, music, art of all kinds will be the next to follow.
I'd like to expand the view a little bit. So non-fungible means unique, and token means right. So what we see today is like pictures, I guess, mostly. So, but it could be much more. It could be music, could be film, could be patent rights, it could be your driver's license, your high school diploma. So I think the range of non-fungible tokens is much, much larger. So what's happening right now, the infrastructure is being built on the hype, the bubble, the Bored Apes and all the others. But I think that infrastructure will expand to other categories of non-fungible rights. And I think that's the big thing. So I'm sure many of the applicants that when you're an employer, you receive applicants that the diplomas are overwritten, are faked. So that could itself solve a huge problem. So I think that the range is much bigger than just funny pictures.
I think personally, to me, that lands is also one of the most interesting use cases that has right now a lot of use cases in general that you can have different forms of utility on top of a land. Because at the end of the day, what is a land really, right? To me, a land is something like a Web3 domain, right? Because on top of a land, you can socialize, you can exchange value, you can distribute information, plus you can also converge it at the end of the day with the traditional world because you can, so to say, reproduce aspects, forms of the real world, so to say, on top of that land, and you can have the representation of brands and everything on top of the land. Plus, another thing is lands are by far the most financialized NFTs, right? Because they're a bit more simple than, especially when it comes to the properties and let's say all these cultural NFTs like Bored Apes. And hence this makes it much better to evaluate these lands at the end of the day and have a fair price, which then allows them to have different forms of utilities also when you integrate them as collateral, for instance, in DeFi protocols, right? And that's where I see the land as a core value. It's not going to be one metaverse with lands that's going to succeed, right? There's going to be different use cases, different niches, right, that evolve and emerge. But at the end of the day, land is to me kind of the base infrastructure layer when it comes to all the different applications, right? Because also these Bored Apes and any other form of NFT that in some way can be connected to lands because the land is the base layer where all the, so to say, metaverse action, the Web3 action takes place. Even for DeFi, for instance, there's already projects evolving where instead of going to the web app of a DeFi protocol, you actually walk into a bank building on top of a metaverse land, right, where you interact with the DeFi protocol. So you have a fully gamified experience. And this all happens on the land, as well as the exchange of the digital assets, the in-game assets on top of the land, which are these avatars that roam freely. And going back to the avatars, maybe one of the biggest use cases that I see there is if you connect these avatars, for instance, with AI, right, then you have bots, forms of identities walking around different forms or environments within the metaverse. And at the end of the day, this can even allow us to have, so to say, different identity layers of ourselves once we connect us. That's a bit far ahead, right? But at the end of the day, that's where a core use case comes.
That sounds very sophisticated, but I would like to know, maybe, Theo, you're the right person for it, from a regulatory standpoint. I mean, do we have enough secure frameworks and legal? I mean, copyright violations is a big topic now with NFTs. So do we need more regulation to have this commercial mass adoption? Maybe Theo?
So what I think is quite interesting at the moment is that the, say, developers and the studios who are releasing those collections, that sometimes they will grant the intellectual property actually to the owners, right? So why is Bored Apes so successful? Because they are the owners of the big umbrella brand, but everyone who buys an ape has the commercial rights to that picture. It's as if you were to buy a Mickey Mouse NFT, and then all of a sudden you can release Mickey Mouse comics. So instead of just one company being in charge of the development of the IP, now you have 10,000 micro-entrepreneurs who are building the brand together with you. And so I think this is this kind of decentralized IP, the decentralized media company, which I think is quite fascinating. And I think it will be a big challenge for, say, traditional media companies to maybe wrap their heads around this model. And what I also want to say is this community aspect is really important because, say, for instance, we have a very active Discord community that is discussing NFTs 24/7. And within that, we have like a Bored Ape community or a Clone Next community. And these are international communities that are just connecting with each other, and they connect both online and also offline. They will have real life events. And they also have, say, Discord channels where only people with the token can access them. And so some people said that NFTs are kind of a new way to make internet friends. And I think this aspect should not be overlooked amid all of the speculation. And there's obviously also lots and lots of communities where you don't have to pay $400,000 to enter, but maybe $0 to enter, but which provide a lot of value to their members.
Okay, when we talk about the next big thing, I think we have to move forward to the metaverse. And honestly, we at BTC Echo, we tried it. We've been to Sandbox, tested it, and it was kind of horrible. You can read it in our magazine, our experience there. And my question is, honestly, isn't it a big advertising event for big companies? And you don't really want to spend time there in the metaverse, like Sandbox or Decentraland. And so I would like to know your opinion about, are they doomed to fail maybe?
Personally, I think we have to look at it from a different perspective. Right now, what is being hyped, so to say, is the Web3 metaverse, but in some way, we could even argue that we've already been in the metaverse in a way with our phones, with the meetings that we conduct digitally, right? So now what's coming is just that Web3 layer that brings the ownership, right, of the assets, the data, and all these other aspects in the utopian future. So if you look at it from that perspective, then currently in that Web3 metaverse, you're at the infrastructure layer, right? So now it's about investing and building, not so much yet about using. After the infrastructure layer, the layer one, so to say, the next thing is the applications, right, that build around that infrastructure, which is currently in a very early stage. And then the community, the users will build around or will come around these infrastructure layers as well as the applications. And that's just from the Web3 metaverse. When it comes to the Web2 metaverse, we're already in it, right? So it's just about, from us, the connection that is missing, so to say, to the technology, the direct connection, as well as the ownership from the Web3 side that it provides. And
right now we have the high valuations. I mean, billions of money, the protocols have this value. And my question is, do they have enough time to make it real in the commercial way that the people want to spend time there? Because right now I can't see it. And that's my question here.
Maybe I can add on that. The question is, what is the metaverse? I think the definition of that is still very blurry. I think a lot of people, of course, we can talk about Sandbox, we can talk about Decentraland. Those are the decentralized metaverses. But then also we have the centralized ones like Meta, for instance. And when we come to mainstream adoption and really user experience, me personally, I'm not a fan of Facebook and Meta, but I bought the Quest 2 and it's mind-blowing. Anyone who's skeptical about this move into a virtual reality, go try one of those headsets. It's really immersive and it's just a showcase where we're gonna be in a couple of years. And I think this especially on the hardware side, on the decentralized metaverse, we're far behind still. I think this is a big piece that is missing to gain mass adoption in the decentralized space.
So maybe one point. I think the metaverse is fascinating in a way because it could be a sandbox, a playground to test and implement things that we will need in real life. So what do I mean? Like the whole financial system is about to fall apart. So high inflation and lots of regulation and sick banks, and it's very complicated. So I think in the metaverse you could implement like payment and financial structure in a sandbox mode, and then you see it working, and you can transfer it back to the real world. So I think a fascinating aspect is the interplay of like the real world and the metaverse, especially when it comes to highly regulated things, because the metaverse maybe is not so much regulated.
And I
maybe
also, oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Just quickly to add on the term metaverse, and as you said, it's not really well defined or pretty blurry at the moment. And you said we might have entered it through the mobile phones already. I think the next big thing will be augmented reality more than virtual reality. I think virtual reality will take a long time for adoption. It will certainly come, and I think it's mind-blowing as well. But, you know, all these AR glasses, the next generation is already, it's ready, it's starting, it's coming. And this is also when the Bored Apes, all these other NFTs will, gain more value, because then it's not just right-click saving a picture and owning a digital picture, but people will see through their glasses when the physical world and the digital world merge. Oh, this is the real thing. This is not just a JPEG. This is the owner of something, and it will go into also like digital fashion, or you will have your digital art on your real fashion, but you might also be able to wear your digital shoes, your real shoes in a digital world, and so on. So I think this is another aspect to the metaverse. A lot of people think it's something like Decentraland, Sandbox, Meta, but I think it's everything that connects us, that connects the physical world and the digital world, and will come in a lot of different shapes.
And Alex, how does a VC investor from HTGF is looking into these different topics like metaverse or DeFi? Is there a special focus you have, or is there something you could imagine to invest in, also maybe in token as well?
Yeah, with the next fund, which will start in September, we will be able to hold token as part of an equity investment. So that's very positive. So a year ago, we invested in Venly, which is building the infrastructure for the NFT infrastructure, like you can create, you can store, you can exchange. And it's one of the top 3 companies that we invested in the third fund, and it's performing really well. So the VC perspective is like, it's kind of easy, what worked well in the crypto space, like exchanges and trading, will also work in the first step, work well in the metaverse. So we're looking for business models that have a clear perspective. We're not so much, if you will, speculators on scarce assets, but things that promise to have a business model, which I think in the infrastructure space, I think there's plenty of that.
Adrian, you have some good insights, I think, about the customers' demand. So which cryptocurrencies they are asking for? Do you plan maybe to make a basket for metaverse, for DeFi? So what's the hot thing right now? 21 shares.
We recently launched a Decentraland ETP as a single tracker. So now it's also possible for traditional investors to get some exposure, even if it's very concentrated to the metaverse. And of course, I can't disclose anything about our pipeline, but we're constantly pushing the regulators and working together with them in order for us to come up with more innovative basket solutions. And yeah, all I can say, stay tuned. That's why we have our research team. We always try to catch up with all the trends and everything that's going on in the crypto space, and we release our products accordingly. Yeah.
Right now, we are seeing many other blockchain or smart contract blockchains next to Ethereum. And I would like to know, maybe for DeFi or maybe just for NFT, which blockchain protocols you think have, in the short term, a very high or promising future? Maybe Theo, next to Ethereum, what do you think?
So as we all know, there are all these environmental concerns with Ethereum and also the scalability issues. So what we can see that there's lots of activity, say on Polygon, but also Immutable X. What I do find interesting though is that all these major brands that are now getting into the NFT game, like Nike and Adidas, that they're still launching their NFTs on Ethereum, even though they probably don't want to get involved in the shitstorm about environmental concerns and transaction costs. So I think this is quite interesting. And I think the way it will play out is that every NFT that wants to become some kind of blue chip and that will have some value or tries to have some value will still launch on Ethereum for the foreseeable future. And I think Polygon and Immutable are more for, like, say, games or maybe free NFT drops where you can't really afford any kind of transaction cost and where maybe it's more of a marketing play.
Okay. Other opinions?
I'd like to add another perspective. I think not directly Bitcoin maybe, but like the Lightning Network as a micropayment and value streaming technology could play a nice role within the metaverse if you transfer value real nicely. I know there's other currencies to transfer value. I really am convinced about the limited number of Bitcoins being very special in that environment, in that inflationary environment. So I think from a Bitcoin perspective, I think that especially the Lightning Network could play a huge role in the metaverse.
I think, for the owners, maybe at this stage, it's about kind of where the launch is, right? Where Ethereum is still the hub, so to say, the most attractive one, where all the luxury NFTs, so to say, are launching. But when it really comes to utility, it's more about also bridging to also more efficient chains, right? But here, I believe generally within the EVM-based ecosystem, right? So any Ethereum-compatible chain, because Ethereum can always be seen kind of as the base layer, and then you have all the EVM-based ecosystems around it, right? And, especially for the users, generally, when we actually have the true utility, it's not so much about which chain anymore, right? It's just about where do we have the most intuitive user interface, it's not much about which metaverse, which chain, it's more about the applications, right? Because if we really want to have mainstream adoption, it's about, where can I intuitively use it, right? Where I don't have to understand it anymore. Hence, I strongly believe in the EVM-based ecosystem and everything that's launching around it. And, for sure, for, let's say, an NFT that is used every day, so to say, it's not necessarily efficient, even once we have let's say Ethereum 2.0 or however we want to call it now with the change, then the application layer will be on sidechains and everything like this, but the launch is, I think, still the most attractive on Ethereum.
Okay, then I would like to move forward on staking. Stefan, you're our staking expert here in this round. I mean, it's very dominant right now, proof of stake. Could you imagine that in the future maybe there is maybe another consensus mechanism that will be more dominant than proof of stake? Or how do you evaluate right now the situation and maybe also some trends and developments in the staking sector?
You know, this is a tough question, actually. I don't know. I want to see it from a different perspective. I think proof of work will not completely vanish, actually. I think, especially to the Bitcoin blockchain, you know, there's something positive to be said about it, even though I'm not a big fan of the energy consumption. And also, I think what a lot of proof of stake blockchains need to get right, and projects in the future, is that they are not too VC-driven, or let's say that the token economics work in a way that the community has a lot of the tokens. Because I feel this creates some uncertainty. Other than that, I have to say, of course, we are very happy with the developments, and I think that, or I have to say, even though Theo is right, and I agree with all of you, I hate it that still so many NFTs get minted on the Ethereum blockchain. I think it's just stupid. I think it's, from an environmental standpoint, just a bad idea. And so I love to see that we have a lot of alternatives to Ethereum, but also to the layer 2s on Ethereum, like the whole Cosmos Terra ecosystem, Polkadot coming up, Avalanche being, you know, a stronger contender as well, Solana having some struggles but being otherwise really fast protocol. I think it's cool that we have all these alternatives now. All of them work on NFTs as well, have their own connections, and all of them are building bridges as well into the EVM ecosystem, as you said. For example, Evmos for the Cosmos Ethereum bridge. We have stuff like Moonbeam on Polkadot. So yeah, we're really excited about this. It's hard to tell which protocol will prevail, which will be the major one. I think compatibility is all, and it seems the whole scene is going into the right direction there.
I'd like to add a very brief point. I think if staking leads to centralization due to scale effects or network effects, I think it's very critical, because that could destroy the whole decentralized idea.
True, but I guess this is to some degree also true for proof of work, no? I mean, you have the big mining pools, a handful of mining pools will have the 50% mining power. You can have this for proof of stake as well. I think the question is what exactly you understand under decentralization. For example, you know, some protocols have a really limited validator pool where probably some companies, you know, already run 20–30%. However, the tokens are still held by someone else, and the governance in theory is done by someone else. So yeah, but this is a valid concern, I guess, and this is also what I meant to get right, is the tokenomics and the distribution of the tokens to ensure that these projects remain community-driven, especially, you know, if we talk about NFTs that go into gaming and stuff like that, that this is community-driven and doesn't become a Web3 version of Web2, basically.
Okay, only 2 minutes left, so I would like to come to the end, and therefore would like to know, maybe also Alex, Jack Dorsey, the Twitter founder, said that the Web 3.0 is dominated and owned by venture capital firms. Do you feel guilty, Alex? Is he correct?
Actually, I don't think so. I think it's true, because if you one of the key differences of the Web 3 to Web 2 is that the Web 3 can finance itself. So the protocols generate value, and that value is being reinvested in startups and new protocols. So I think it's being owned much less by VCs than the Web 2 was owned. And you know, that's the 2 trillion value that's sitting somewhere that's being recycled. And I think VCs play a great role, because they not only give money, they add value, and they know how to scale maybe. So I think it's the combination of both.
Other opinions?
I think generally, you know, what decentralization is creating equal opportunities, right? And if we really look at the crypto environment right now, and also the metaverse, it is fairly centralized, we have to be honest, right? Especially also the major metaverse projects and everything like this, the chains, Bitcoin blockchain, Ethereum blockchain, there is still very centralized, so to say, players at hand. But the biggest difference is really that the entry point for anyone is easier, right? So anyone can at least have the chance to so to say, make it in that environment and have luck, so to say, with early stage investments where you wouldn't typically have access to, right? And I think that's the biggest difference. Of course, VCs play a huge role, especially right now. In the past, let's say, hype cycle, they've played a major role in the ecosystem. But because also there's projects that require certain support from VCs, so they can actually provide, let's say, applications that then in turn, so to say, provide that respective value and the decentralized value for the people. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, I have many more questions here in my hand, but no more time. So now I have to say thank you very much for your great insights. Thank you so much, and thank you to your audience. And now, we'll hand it over.
Thank you, Sven.
Thank you.
Thank you.